Hi.
I'm growing here.
You say you're growing dreads?
Yeah,
Oh, nice.
I'm in the loft phase, which everyone calls the ugly phase.
Well, it's just early, I think. Where'd you say you found that? Where'd you say you found that?
Mr. Bradley, John?
Oh.
Oh, that's his?
Yeah.
Did he let you borrow it?
Yeah.
Or did you just steal it?
No, stealing is
He let you borrow it.
I tried to buy it off him, and he said no. He said he's not ready to give it up this yet.
Is it a CD player or MP3?
CD player.
Don't worry about a thing.
He also has a camcorder, and I saved up the money to buy the battery and the charger for it. All for him, and Mr. Electric to say, oh, he'll buy it.
What's he gonna do with it?
No, I wanted to, like, because we're starting where we could go up around the campus. So I wanted the camcorder for like the 90s feel.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have a battery for it. So I saved up the money. I got threw up on for months. So like the battery's like $50.
Yeah. Where do you work?
No, I was babysitting.
Oh, I see.
I don't like children.
Me either.
And I was like, oh, you grow out of it. I don't like kids in my age.
You might not.
You grew up with a bunch of adults. You grew up with policemen.
I've never grown out of it. I hate little kids. Even like 8th graders are too young.
Like I have
9th grade, I could deal.
My little brother, today's his birthday, so now I gotta go hang out with him.
How old is he?
7.
Ooh.
He's at that point in time where he's just starting to learn how to talk back. And it's like, now I'm gonna want to punch you in your throat. I tried to do it earlier. But now you're getting to the age where you can get punched.
I regret being a child.
No, I don't think I was ever really a child. I was born old.
You were born with immaculate English skills.
Honestly though, like my parents thought I might have a developmental disorder because I didn't talk almost at all until I was like 3 years old, like just words here and there. And then I one time like looked up at my mom and said, "Mommy, pick me up, please." And she was like, "From there on, you were just speaking sentences."
My mom was like that too, or like that with me too.
I feel like you just want to make sure you're getting it perfect.
And she took me to the doctor, and I was like, "There's nothing wrong with her."
No, just maybe you just didn't want to talk. I didn't want to talk.
I didn't want to, like, and our house was so noisy.
My sister would kind of talk for me, and like I don't know how like accurate this was or anything, but they'd be like, "Grace, what do you want?" And my sister would be like, "She wants more milk," and they'd be like, "Is that correct, Grace?" And I'd be like, "Hi, everyone." You could read my mind. Oh. Okay, David's here. Trina, everyone's here. Yay. I'm gonna plug in for a minute here because I'm gonna show you guys a couple things. What tell my thoughts could tell, just like an old time movie. Okay, so I've gone ahead and posted a couple of things to Canvas, but I'm gonna kind of walk you through them and explain what they are. I'm not going to be here tomorrow. If you are here in person, Mr. Cheek will be here. And he has instructions, but I'm going to go ahead and give you guys the instructions. And I've also scheduled an email to send at 8 a.m. to all of my classes just to make sure everybody knows what they're doing.
Wait, what happened?
I got to go to the doctor.
You just like Miss Smith. She wants us to go to the dentist.
Well, that's good. She's getting her teeth taken care of. I do need to go to the dentist. I haven't been since before COVID, so I need to make that happen at some point. But I have a neurologist appointment to figure out what to do about all of my horrible migraines. So.
Oh, I just found it the doctor visit the neurologist because they know that I had epilepsy.
Oh, which one did you go to?
Oh, my pediatrician.
Oh, okay. I go to this like really sweet, funny, little elderly, tiny old man. Okay, so let me share my screen with you guys for a minute so that we can kind of walk through everything. This is the thing we're doing tomorrow, Calvin and Hobbes rhetoric activity. And let me just open it up on this so I don't have to have a million copies of it open. Y'all may be familiar with this comic strip, Calvin and Hobbes. It's been around for ages. The author / illustrator is Bill Watterson. But it's one of the most revered comic strips ever made, with the possible exception of like Snoopy or Peanuts and maybe Dilbert. Like this is a big one. Partially due to its humor. Look at this. There's a sentence fragment in the middle of these instructions. I didn't create this, for the record. Partially due to its humor. All these errors, but more due to its ability to be more than a comic strip. Through these hand-drawn panels, Bill Watterson, the creator, is able to discuss life, philosophy, death, and social conventions in a meaningful way. And as such, you're going to analyze the following comic strips rhetorically. You're going to write a paragraph, and it doesn't have to be like super long or anything, but a few sentences analyzing what he's saying with the comic, how he's saying it, like that's where you're going to focus more on rhetorical analysis, like what strategies is he using and why is he saying it? What point ultimately is he making with the comic strip? So there's 5 of these, and I just kind of wanted to show you guys, like there's room for you to write under each one. Some of them are longer than others. The last one in particular is quite long. You can kind of see how it's evolved through the years too. This one's pretty long. It's like a 3-page comic strip. But keep in mind those directions. What is he saying? How is he saying it? And why is he saying it? So that's what you're doing tomorrow. I think you'll probably have enough time to finish it in 50 minutes. But Wednesday also, since Wednesday is a success session, we're gonna, if you don't finish it tomorrow, you can finish this on Wednesday, or you can work on the essay that I'm about to show you guys. Okay. I'm also going to open this up in a different thing. Not Frankenstein. Uh-huh.
You went to contest last night?
The what contest?
Film contest for the NBA.
I didn't know that was a thing. Okay, so this is one of my favorite papers that y'all will write. This one, and there's another synthesis essay that y'all would do before the quarter is over, and they're like 2 of my favorite. They're probably my top 2 favorite papers that I have kids write. And part of that's because I like crime, not to commit it, but like to read about it. And particularly since it hasn't been too long since we read In Cold Blood, this is still very relevant. We kind of talked about this. We talked about how Dick and Perry were affected differently by their crimes. And that kind of goes for any and all criminals. Some criminals will try to forget what they've done and move on. Others will dwell on the situation. Some people will repeat their crime. That's actually called recidivism. Isn't that a fun word? It's just like the likelihood of someone to repeat a crime. So you can think about how Dick and Perry reacted to the Clutter murders. We didn't read Columbine in here, but if you know anything about that school shooting, which happened when I think I was in 5th grade, maybe, the two guys who did that, their behavior after some petty crimes that they did earlier may have led to the tragedy at Columbine, and that might have looked different for each of them. So y'all are going to kind of be familiar with this argument a little bit because you talked about it on your test for In Cold Blood. But a lot of scientists and psychologists try to analyze these people. Obviously, I mean, there's so many like true crime documentaries out now that are trying to get at the heart of like what created these issues for the people who committed them, like what led to all of this crime. They try to figure out what would drive a person to murder, and there's kind of two schools of thought, and we touched on this back when we finished In Cold Blood. Some people think that people are affected by their environment, and some people think that a person's actions are determined by their genes even before they're born. And that argument is called nature versus nurture, which is essentially genetics, the way you're made, versus the way you're brought up and how you're affected by the world and what happens to you. So keeping this in mind, you're going to do some research. You are going to choose any famous criminal. It can be a mass murderer, a serial killer, or a habitual criminal. It could be like Al Capone. It could be Charles Manson. It could be anybody. And you're going to study that person's story, learn about their background, study their murders or their crimes and their motives, like you're trying to analyze their behavior. And once you've completed your research, you're going to write a persuasive synthesis essay in which you try to convince the audience that they either committed the crimes because they felt naturally compelled to do so or because they felt greatly influenced by their environment. And just remember, when you're looking at a person's environment, when you're researching that, you should be considering their upbringing as well as however they wound up. The one stipulation here is that you cannot conclude that nature and nurture are equal. One of them should be, you should argue that one of them is a stronger influence than the other. Now you can say, you can kind of qualify and say that whoever you're examining, that this person was primarily led to a path of crime because of their because of an abusive childhood or because of something terrible that happened to them, but their genetics may have played a factor in it as well. You can say that, but just as long as you are taking a stronger stance on one side. You do need to research the other side as well, because, you know, a strong argument always addresses the opposing side. So one thing to be really careful about is that you're not simply summarizing your sources and writing a biographical essay. That's kind of a pitfall that a lot of people fall into when they're doing this essay. Because for the most part, I probably don't know all the information that you have or that you're going to find. I probably have not read a million trillion things about each of these people. Some of them I might have, but you might feel like you should summarize a lot of the sources and like tell me a lot about their lives. But keep in mind, this is first and foremost an argumentative essay. So you always want to bring it back to what you're arguing. You should consider researching separate theories of nature versus nurture if you want to really do this justice and find out what motivates a criminal. There's a rubric down at the bottom, which we'll look at briefly. But just for specific requirements, You need to use at least 3, but no more than 6 credible sources. Credible sources are sometimes difficult to determine, particularly given the fact that we don't necessarily have access to like research databases. If you do 101 with me next year, you will have that access and it will be great. But we don't. So you kind of want to keep in mind like .com sites are usually not going to be great for this kind of thing. Particularly like Wikipedia. In fact, I may have said this at some point before. I've definitely said it to other classes. I had a professor in college literally tell my class, if you use Wikipedia as a source, I will stab you in the heart. He said that. I'm not saying that because that's threatening, but
Wait, what?
yeah, my favorite professor actually. He said, if we use Wikipedia as a source, it would stab us in the heart. Because anybody can add to Wikipedia. Like it doesn't always have to be true. In fact, a lot of times people will change Wikipedia and it gets like it gets fixed pretty quickly, but they'll just like put a prank up there. God, there was something with Elizabeth Warren this year and I can't remember what it was. But they changed Wikipedia for like maybe a couple of hours before anyone realized that it was wrong and they should take it down. So you're going to find at least 3, but no more than 6 credible sources. .com sites are not great. .net sites are hard to come by now. .org is better. .gov or .edu is best. MLA style format, which would be 11 to 12 point font, something easy to read. Both direct and parenthetical citations and works cited. Maybe we should go back over some works cited stuff. Actually, I'm going to show you one thing before we move on and let you guys get working. But 1,000 to 1,200 words. I don't think I'll have this issue with any of you guys, but you could go beyond 1,200 words and it would be fine. I have had that issue with people in the past. I think someone brought up earlier in the year, didn't Dominic write a memoir that was like 1 million pages? Yes, he did. It was like 32 pages or something. I think so. It was a lot. Definitely more than 20. I think more than 30. But I was like, yeah, I don't want to rain on your parade. So if you feel like you want to write more than 1,200 words, you can. But 1,000 word minimum, which is actually not that much. So all of this stuff is sort of, it should be obvious to you guys. A position statement meaning a thesis, support for your position, evidence and examples, accuracy, very important. Sequencing, which is just like organization, making sure that everything flows in a logical manner. Grammar and spelling. Definitely want to do some proofreading before you turn this in. Some people don't love to do that. That kind of goes in the same thing with capitalization and punctuation. Closing paragraph and sources. So you can kind of see what you're being graded on here. So I want to show you actually on this, just to start you, and these are not, the websites that I've linked to here are not really sites that you want to use as your sources. You could maybe use this first one, but just to get you kind of started looking at some famous criminals that you could use, I gave you 3 websites here. I hope they all work here. I'm actually not sure. This is a list. They're, I think these are in alphabetical order. Some of them you probably would have heard of before, but a lot of them you might not. Ted Bundy, you've probably heard of Ted Bundy. He's my favorite serial killer. Al Capone, we've heard of Al Capone. Jeffrey Dahmer, we've probably heard of. John Wayne Gacy, you may have heard of. Just kind of Charles Manson, you've probably heard of. Lee Harvey Oswald. James Earl Ray, maybe. So there's a lot there. You can kind of go through and see if there's anybody that interests you. Richard Ramirez, which also, if there are probably several people on this list. I know I've told you guys you can cite any kind of source. There are documentaries on a lot of these people. There's one on Richard Ramirez that just came out called The Night Stalker, which was pretty good. There's definitely one on Ted Bundy. Both of those are on Netflix. Ted Kaczynski, that's the Unabomber. Chip told me the other day that I looked like him. I know. Zodiac Killer. I think there's some documentaries. There's at least a movie based on reality called Zodiac. I will go ahead and tell you he's a difficult one to do because we're not 100% sure who the Zodiac Killer actually is. Most people think that they know, but the guy that is the number one suspect was never convicted of anything, and he's dead now. So that would be kind of a hard one to do. All those are people that we had heard of. Jack the Ripper, someone's done that before. Osama bin Laden, no one's done that before. Mark David Chapman is the guy who killed John Lennon. This guy, if you guys have watched Mindhunter, he's a prominent character in that show. Gypsy Rose Blanchard, there's a documentary of her, which I really recommend actually, called something about Mommy Dearest, Mommy Dead and Dearest maybe. And her Gypsy Rose Blanchard, her mom, she has what this disorder called Munchausen by proxy, which is essentially where someone else is keeping you sick. And her mom was keeping her sick. She grew up thinking that she had like cancer and that she was paralyzed and all this stuff. And her mom was like giving her all of these meds that made her sick and made her like not able to grow and stuff. And then when she was a teenager, she got involved with this guy online, and they plotted to murder her mother because they were like, that's the only way that we'll be able to like extricate her from this situation. So that's what happened. She murdered her mom.
What?
Yeah, it's wild. Also, there's a show based on it on Hulu called The Act, which is really pretty good. Wild story. John Wayne Gacy, we said BTK killer.
I heard about BTK.
BTK stand for bind, torture, kill.
Do we have to choose from these lists?
You do not have to choose from these lists. This is just giving you some resources in case you like don't have any idea who you might want to research. Just like here, these are some lists.
Okay.
This guy was in the 70s. He was on the dating game, and he won. And it was like while he was, this guy right here, Rodney Alcala, he was like committing murders during the middle of that. And like when he won the game, I guess the girl who picked him actually decided not to go out with him because she got like a bad vibe from him. So yeah. That's the Oklahoma bombing guy. I don't know all of these guys, but she's like probably the most famous female serial killer. This guy is not a murderer, but you may have heard of him in the past. He was arrested for securities fraud because he was like raising the prices of medications to like insane amounts, and just like ripping everybody off. These are a lot. There's a lot on this one. Some of which I've heard of and some of which I haven't. Anyway, H.H. Holmes, if you've ever read the book Devil in the White City, and if you haven't, at some point there's supposed to be a show on Hulu starring Leonardo DiCaprio of it. But he built a murder castle. Crazy.
Wait, did you say Burger Castle?
Murder.
Oh.
A murder castle. And I'm going to stop on this source because I feel like it's starting to go off the rails a little bit. Like Stephen Avery is the dude from Making a Murderer, and he's convicted, but he still maintains that he's innocent. And Jared Fogle is the Subway guy. So I don't actually know what he's done. I don't know why he's a famous criminal. I don't know. But there's a lot on there. Pedophilia. Jared from Subway is a pedophile? That's upsetting. Oh my God. This guy's name is... No, I didn't know that. I really didn't. I didn't remember that. Wow. This guy, Popcorn Sutton, famous moonshiner.
Wait, we watched a documentary about old school, and he was drinking moonshine.
Oh my gosh.
Dude was dancing in the woods.
He's the exact kind of man I would think would be a moonshiner just from looking at him. He was a big like 1920s bank robber, 20s and 30s, and also Johnny Depp played him in a movie. Blackbeard the pirate, yeah, you could do him. Why not? I'm gonna stop looking at that one and look at this last one, which is probably gonna be most of the people we've already seen. I know this one is shorter. That's the dating game guy again. I have no idea who she is. Oh, I didn't mean to click on her actually. Ted Bundy, Charles Manson. Most of these are like, I think the people that other students have done their papers on. Oh, he was also on Mindhunter. Jack the Ripper, someone's done him. Harold Shipman. There is a documentary on him, but I haven't watched it. And the reason I'm saying documentaries is because you could use a documentary as a source. And the online writing lab from Purdue would tell you how to cite it, and that would be totally fine. We have so many resources available to us these days. So you're picking your person, and you can start researching them. If you look at this, this is due March 15th. Probably your other teachers have told you this already, but Friday has been changed to an e-learning day because a lot of the staff is getting vaccinated, and it's just a district-wide rule that if your school is getting vaccinated, you have to be e-learning that day, because they have to like assign time slots for people to get their vaccines, and it might be during classes. I've already got mine, so we're good. My first one anyway. And then Monday is also e-learning. So, you know, hopefully you won't feel like it's a super long extended weekend, but because you will still have work to do, but we won't be meeting on Zoom. So I'll actually be seeing you guys so little over the next week. So this is due Monday. I can't remember off the top of my head what I have planned for e-learning for Friday, but I know that Monday will be finish this up and submit it. But we will have a good amount of time to work on it in class this week. Let me stop sharing so that I can look at my lesson plans for just a minute here. Yeah, we have another, y'all need to know that. You don't need to know the plans for every day ahead of time. I doubt you'd even remember if I said it. What? Okay. So, you know, you don't have to do a murderer. I just want to reiterate that, because some people really don't like murder stuff. And
yeah, I was looking for other things.
Yeah.
And I found about the Penn State sex scandal.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Penn State sex scandal. I kind of remember that.
One like the defensive coordinator was arrested for numerous instances of molesting children.
Yeah. Gosh, I feel like I'd have a harder time reading about that than I would about murder. Just like, oh.
I don't want to hear about people dying. Yeah.
I don't want to hear about people trying to do stuff to kids. but everybody has their own limits. So if you are someone who, like me, loves to read about serial killers and stuff, there are plenty of options for you. If that makes you uncomfortable, there are all other kinds of criminals that you can look at.
I was thinking of doing R. Kelly, but I don't think that was a good thing.
I mean, you could do R. Kelly. That man is nuts. He's got a sex cult at his house in Atlanta.
Oh yeah.
And people are just like, people are trying to like extricate their children, and their children are like being brainwashed by R. Kelly. I didn't even know about this until I saw the documentary. I knew that he had sex with underage girls, but I didn't know that he had like a sex cult at his house. And now I feel really bad because I actually really like the Ignition remix, and I really like Trapped in the Closet. And obviously I Believe I Can Fly is a classic, but I can't support that kind of thing. Yeah, you could do someone like that. You could do like, I mean, you know, there was a moonshiner on that list. There's
Wait, like he like poisoned moonshine?
no, he didn't poison moonshine. He just like moonshining is illegal. Like he had an illegal still.
Oh,
So
no, the funny thing.
or had like a big business.
Mr. Bradley's like he showed us his middle school yearbook,
Mm-hmm.
and he said, "Oh, the assistant principal of my school, he killed his wife 2 years ago."
Whoa.
Like, he said it in such a calm way, like,
Oh, yeah, that guy killed his wife 2 years ago.
who
Ooh.
said that? Why do you say it so calmly? Oh yeah, he killed
Oh
his
yeah,
wife
that
2 years ago.
happened. Oh yeah, that guy's a murderer. No big deal. So hopefully, you know, you've got like 20 minutes left. So hopefully you can at least start getting some research done and figuring out who you might want to do your paper about. And like I said, we'll have a good bit of time this week to work on this in class, and certainly to ask questions or anything. I have an email scheduled to send out tomorrow morning to let you guys know what you're supposed to be working on. But again, it's the Calvin and Hobbes thing. If you have any questions during the day tomorrow, you can email me, but I don't know that I'll get it until later, just because I'm tied up during the day tomorrow. But I'm gonna let you guys kind of get to work and start looking and see who you might want to write your essay about. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn this off. If you already know, you can let me know who you're doing yours about. If you don't know yet, totally fine.